we call the Twilight Zone.
You occur and you look at Steph and Clay and even Draymond with his lack of performance.
Is it 2 in a row? 7 points for him. The twirling Doncic. Melting into the defense. The front Curry strikes. Swing, fly ball. Well hit left center. Robert Acuna has home. Rookie rushing record for the Steelers.
Look, he came into this game averaging 3.67 yards per carry. 42nd out of 49 qualified rushes.
Freeze to begin the third quarter. It has been incredible. Here he comes again. Oh, goodness. And a Greek basketball god. And he was a great guy to teach the
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Untitled Sports. I am Corey. With me tonight is Aaron. And Aaron, we got a good one for him. We got a great one, man. We got a great one. We got a great one. First of all, can I just say one thing that we've all been waiting to hear? Football is back, baby. It's back and in action. It's just training camp. It's the land of overreactions, positive, negative, all those things in between. But it's back and it feels good, dude.
Yeah,
it feels so fucking
They're
good.
moving at like 50% out there, but I'm feeling like it's 100%.
And they're all
I'm ready to go, dude.
They're all wearing like basically sock and bob robots.
Helmets.
Dude, they're beautiful. I don't care. I love it. Love every aspect. Well, we got a great show for you tonight. We have some special guests coming in, and I think we should just get fucking started here. Let's get going.
I'm rocking my blue in honor.
Oh, in honor. We got the boys from Second and Victory joining us tonight. We got Austin and Brett straight out of Nashville. Appreciate you boys joining us. What's going on, fellas?
Thanks for having us, dog. This is sick.
This is an honor. Thanks for having us,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I hope everybody's coming in, and
yeah,
for those of you that are new here, we appreciate you dropping by. Any of the Second and Victory community coming on by, we appreciate it. But hey, man, we are excited about what the Titans got going on, and we want to hear a little bit about it. Untitled Sports is focused on primarily small market teams. That's what we like to do. We feel the New York market, the LA, Chicago, even the Steelers a little bit. Sorry to one of our co-hosts, Bobby's. They get plenty of love, man. We need to shed some light on some of the smaller boys out there. So we cover the Titans as much as we can. We try and cover the Colts. I know you don't like to hear that, but the Panthers, Bengals, Browns, Lions, all the small guys. We're standing up for them. So before we get into the season and the preview and all that good stuff, why don't you tell us a little bit about your pod and all that good stuff and how you got started?
Yeah, Brett, man. Brett and I have been in with this since the inception. I was in college at Middle Tennessee State, and I was scrolling on Twitter, and a company at the time called ArmchairAllAmericans.com came across my feed, and they were looking for writers. So in school, I went to school for sports broadcasting, and I wanted to do something. So I was like, why not, start writing about the Titans? I have a passion for it, been a fan my entire life. This is easy. So I applied. I think they pretty much just gave everybody that job applied. So got that and was writing for them. Had a podcast, and the guy that ran it kind of just said, "Hey, we have another Titans writer, Brett. He's with you." We had a few more guys coming after that. So Brett and I have known each other, 5 years now, Brett?
Just 5 years, yeah.
Doing this, just kind of just strangers. We've kind of just hit it off the Titans. Brett's a close friend of mine now. We kind of left Armchair All-Americans because we were just kind of outgrowing it and made our own thing with another friend of ours, Chris Carter. Chris is the brains behind what we do. If you see any of our graphics on Twitter, it's Chris. We could do nothing without him. So I hate that he couldn't make it tonight, but he's in here with spirit. So, but yeah, we've been doing Second and Victory for a long time, and people kind of sometimes ask, what does that even mean? The stadium, Nissan Stadium, where the Titans play at, is on 2nd Street and Victory Avenue. So kind of where we got the name from.
I love it. Love it.
Something that we came up with. We kind of were figuring out, how do we brand this? What's our name? And that's one thing that we came up with. So been doing this now for Second and Victory for 3 years, I believe. This is going to our 3rd season or 4th season. And we really enjoy it.
Well, guys, you guys are going to get some love coming on the live stream here because you get beautiful women just hitting on you the whole time.
I see you, Corey.
Don't tell anybody. That's my wife, but don't tell. We'll pretend that that it's not. Just what we like to role play. we appreciate you guys again coming on, man. That's a hell of a story. And it's kind of interesting, Aaron, hearing that.
I was thinking of the same thing. Yeah.
And the lines that are drawn between, how Aaron and we met as random roommates at the Bowling Green State University.
Nice.
And honestly, I was in radio. Aaron was in sports management, and just ridiculously crazy Bengals fan, crazy Browns fan. We're like, well, why don't we just like do a podcast and just talk about the Bengals and Browns and like share about the NFL a little bit? And that's what we did. The Battle of Ohio got started there, and it was awesome. So that's pretty cool to hear the similarities there. Let's start focus a little bit on the X's and O's. Let's talk a little bit about the Titans. 2021. Give me your take on the season. How did you feel coming out of that season when all things said and done? I'm not trying to rub salt in a wound here, nothing like that. But when it all came out at the end, how did you feel about where the Titans were, what you thought they were going to achieve, what they did achieve, all of those things considered? Obviously, with Henry getting hurt, all of these things. How'd you feel?
Dude, it was honestly, at the end of the season, it was a punch in the gut, to be quite honest with you. Kind of similar to the end of the 2020 season. Obviously, the team last year was better. But, there's been so many close calls the last couple of years. Like, the year the Titans made it to the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs, that was kind of like a Cinderella story. But I had kind of one of those vibes that you felt like, hey, man, this team can really have something over these next couple of years. And if you follow along, you could kind of see it slowly starting to get to that level. And last year was supposed to be that year where you're like, all right, hey, man, like, this is it. Like, 91 players have been on the roster this year. Derrick Henry's back. We've been through so much adversity. I mean, the Titans, the reason they won the game against San Francisco right before Christmas was because of A.J. Brown. So you get into the playoffs, you're like, hey, all these guys are back. They're finally healthy. And then you go out there and you just lose the game. And, like, it's kind of like that's not supposed to happen. And so it's kind of honestly probably like when the Titans beat Baltimore and New England 3 years ago on their Cinderella run. It's just one of those things where it hits you like, dang, man, like that's not how it was supposed to end.
Yeah, it was honestly like I have been in that chair so many times as a Bengals fan where, if you want to go back to 2015 where we win the division and we got the Steelers at home and just choke that game away. That's how I've been there so many times where you're just like, after the season that we just had, there's no way that's how it was supposed to go down. Austin, do you feel the same way?
100%. I mean, Brett and I go to a lot of games. Brett works for the local radio station out here, 104.5 The Zone, so he's at every game. I've had season tickets since I was a little kid. So like you said, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly from our team. And you feel like last year, so much adversity, 91 different players on the roster. Derek goes down. You have your inspiration of Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard, and you kind of ride that wave, and it didn't matter who was playing. They stepped up and made plays, and they won 12 games and was the number one seed somehow, some way. And I think people still are thinking, how the hell were the Titans with Ryan Tannehill, no Derrick Henry, a beat up A.J. Brown, a beat up Julio Jones, no tight end? How the fuck did they make the number one seed? And well, you see what happened. And they ran out of gas at the end, and they still they could have made a ton of more plays in that game against Cincinnati, but they turned the ball over way too much. And
first play of the game.
First play
of the game. Absolutely a tone setter. It's hard to come back from that, man. You're sitting on the sideline as defense. You're like, all right, cool. Our offense is going to get the ball. We're going to go down and score, and then we're going to set the tone. And then you're like, oh, fuck. All right, strap it up. Let's go. Short field, time to protect.
That game too, man. I stood I was standing in the middle level when they announced Derrick Henry. Austin would be on the other side of the field near the visitors' locker room where they come out of. But like the noise that like you couldn't hear yourself talk, you couldn't hear yourself think, the PA announcer sang when Derrick Henry ran out of the locker room, and I had no idea. And so, like, I mean, you talk about the absolute noise and the energy that you felt inside the stadium was something that you probably haven't felt in a long time. And then just for it to just kind of flare out like that was just, like I said, just like a punch in the gut.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just thought it was our year. You thought it was the Titans to do something to finally, get over the hump, and Titans did Titans things.
I mean, it's hard to not think that when you're the number one seed, it starts to appear, at least throughout the season, at least at the beginning of the season, the big bad wolf that is the Kansas City Chiefs, they were, not the Chiefs at the beginning of the season, right? So it's easy to think that. You mentioned A.J. Brown. I know, Aaron, you kind of wanted to get in a little bit on the A.J. Brown discussion, obviously not on the roster this season.
Yeah, I mean, I found it very interesting. Like while we were all watching the draft together, I immediately understood what they were doing. There's something that we always talk about on this podcast about positions of interest, right? So I call those the quarterback, the wide receiver, offensive line, left tackle, if you will, defensive end, and cornerback. Those are the guys when you have on the rookie contract, you have the 5th-year option, but those are the guys who get paid the most money in the second contract. So if you can have that team control for as long as possible, you're really doing yourself a service against the salary cap.
Right.
So can you talk to us a little bit about that, at least in terms of, the pros and cons between not signing A.J. Brown, but also resetting a rookie clock with someone like Burks?
Man, I tell you what, it's the pros are obviously you got more money than what you would have had for sure, because you got a guy that's let me backtrack a little bit. Before the draft started, half the fan base wanted Treylon Burks, but they wanted Treylon to be there with AJ because they thought that would be a stud 1-2. So obviously when AJ gets traded, when you're sitting there at 16, you're like, okay, well, if it's not Treylon Burks, I don't know where you're going to go here. So you knew that Treylon was coming at that point. So the positives now, like there's the Treylon stuff that went off in the offseason about him maybe not being in shape and all that. He's in shape now. He looks good in camp. And now he has a veteran presence in somebody like Robert Woods, who's been there for 10 years now. He's got other rookies around him, and like Kyle Phillips, guys that he can learn and grow with that can really help this offense in the long run, along with veteran guys. Nick Westbrook-Akina now, it's only his 3rd, maybe 4th year. I'd have to go look, but he's been so deep into this roster now for a couple of years now. He understands the offense. So there's a lot of guys for Treylon to really learn from.
And I think the cons of it is, you trade away arguably your best player on the roster outside Derek.
Sure. Outside Derek, yeah, for sure.
You trade away, what we were starting to say the best wide receiver in franchise history. If you go back and look at the length of time, there's not a whole bunch of studs that stick out for the Titans. You were making an argument that AJ already is the best wide receiver in franchise history. So just for him to be gone like that, kind of hitting his prime, and only after 3 years, it's a shock.
Right.
John Robinson, if you pay attention to what he does, he makes a lot of risky decisions, but he bets on himself a lot. And with drafting guys like Caleb Farley in the 1st round, Jeffrey Simmons, Simmons is looking to pan out. I think that has something else to do with it. That I think he's looking down the road saying, I'm about to have to pay Jeffrey Simmons probably the 2nd most amount of money outside of Aaron Donald to an interior lineman. So he was looking forward to that. But yeah, I think he was just he made a decision that he came into a number to AJ and said, here's what we can give you. And if you can't get that, then best of luck to you. And I think at that point, AJ was like, I'm ready to go.
Yeah. And I mean, let's face it too, when we were in the offseason, the amount of capital you were able to move wide receivers for, you see, Tyreek Hill, a bunch of other guys that are going for 1, 2, Devontae Adams. There's, tons of receivers that were on the move.
Major hauls.
Yeah, exactly. Striking when the iron's hot with a pretty notoriously competent wide receiver class for 2022.
Yeah, and I think, you guys got to be pumped about the highlight they're dropping. I know it's training camp, you take it with a grain of salt here, but literally I send you guys this topic about what we're going to be talking about, and the next thing we see is Burks just laying out for a catch from Danny. You got to love it, right?
100%.
Absolutely.
Just not too much. You're not in pads, so don't break anything just yet, please.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is one thing. But he's out there trying to prove himself. I think there's a little bit of rust to be shaken off too. He hasn't played competitive football for a while, and he hasn't been in this pro schedule. He wants to get up to speed and everything like that. So I think there's a little bit of that that's going on with it. So on that note, we talked a little bit about it just now, but what do we look out for in the Titans in 2022?
Kind of going back to what Brett said, man, after 2021, the air in this fan base has kind of just been, it's gone now.
Sure.
The buzz isn't as loud as it was last year, the year before that. It's just kind of like, all right, prove to us now. You had everything in front of you. Now you have to go work for it again. So it's going to have to come down to, we talked about it Tuesday on our podcast. A lot of the pressure's on 17 this year, Tannehill. I think we said it's a $36.5 million cap hit. I think the biggest for a quarterback this season. That's an astronomical number for Ryan Tannehill, but he has earned it. It's just now putting the pieces together. We also made an argument that the pass catchers for 2022 for the Titans team arguably better than 2021. You now have Treylon Burks, Robert Woods. You now have a safety blanket in Austin Hooper. They go and get a really talented tight end at Chig Okonkwo from Maryland. So there's some pieces there. Nick Westbrook-Ikena, he's a wide receiver that they've really liked and he's developed over the years. So on the offense side, there's a lot to prove. And of course, you got 22 in the backfield coming off that. Yeah. You only saw him just a dozen snaps in the playoff game, but there's still that hype around him. That's not going anywhere. There's still the debate of who's running back one in this league, and I'd still tip my hat to Derek.
I think until somebody go ahead, Brett.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, kind of backing off of Austin too. It's. I think the hype is still there, but it's more on edge. Like everybody's extremely on edge because you saw what happened last year, and it's like, okay, well, you've won the division 2 years in a row. Now you've been to the playoffs 3 out of the last 5 years. You've had 4 straight winning seasons now. It's almost like that's become the normalcy now in Nashville. People are ready for that next jump to take because, like we mentioned earlier, the going to the AFC Championship game a couple years ago, that was kind of what started it all because that wasn't expected. And you haven't been back since. You've had all the winning seasons. Now the fans are ready to get back there again. And
you know what? We kind of mentioned this a couple of times in this show, and we put it out there on Twitter. Whether it's football, basketball, baseball, it doesn't matter. That's the goal. Like just winning the division is not the goal. That's not why you play the game. That's not why GMs sign up for this. That's not why head coaches sign up. You do it to win the whole fucking thing.
That's your key to get in the door.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's not to say you're going to do it overnight, right? We're not saying that the Jaguars fan base should expect to go win the Super Bowl next year. What they should expect is to get better, and they should expect to work towards that goal. Sorry to stay in the fucking AFC South. That wasn't.
No, it's fine.
Picking a shitty team is what I was doing. So
the Titans dominate the Jags every year, so it's all good.
But you know what I'm saying, though. It's like you expect to get better, but at the end of the day, the goal still remains the same. The goal at the beginning of every single team or every single season for every single team should be to win a Super Bowl or to win an NBA Finals or to win the World Series. That's it. There's nothing else. So I can 100% appreciate that fact. Like, all right, we've done this part. Now it's time to move on. And as a Bengals fan, I've come from that low where it's like we're the number 1 overall pick. We want to see something. And then Burrow goes down. Okay, what do I want to see going in this next season? I want to see Burrow do what I want to see us compete for the playoffs is what I want to see us. Obviously, we exceeded those expectations tenfold, and I wouldn't trade it for nothing. But it was just now going into this next season, playoffs are like if we don't like playoffs is the minimum. That's the minimum of what I expect out of that team. 100%. If you don't make the playoffs, it's a failure. You know what I'm saying? So.
And it wasn't that long ago, too, where the Titans went 3-27 over a 2-year span. So you talk about starting way from the bottom and trying to work your way up. The Titans have pretty much done that now. And like you said, the winning the division is the standard now. So now you just got to get up to that next hump.
So go ahead. No, that's you.
Piggybacking off that, like you said, your Bengals made it to the Super Bowl, so it's now playoffs are bust. The Titans had that taste of it in a 2019 AFC title game. They were very close. Almost there. I went to that game, and it sucked leaving. Yeah. Anyway,
I can imagine.
But last season, you're the number 1 seed, and you're close again. You had the path. It had to go through Nashville. I think too. You see how much tougher the AFC has gotten this offseason.
Oh my God!
Titans aren't even being talked about right now, and that's okay. They don't deserve to be talked about. I think they have to earn that right again. But the Broncos, right? We know about the AFC West, the Bengals, Ravens.
Let me ask you there. Kind of taking a sidebar here.
Yeah.
The Broncos. Where are you at on Russell Wilson?
You think he's still got it, right? Like I think he's still an elite
quarterback. Me and Austin are fucking on the same page with this shit. He's fucking done, man. He's got to prove. He's in the same boat as the Titans to me. He's got to prove it.
Right.
You got to prove it, man.
I'm giving the upper hand to Las Vegas. Derek Carr has done more in these last couple of years than Russell Wilson has, and I get Seattle hasn't given a whole lot of weapons outside DK. Tyler Lockett's still amazing, but outside of that, the running game sucks. He's kind of had to do it all by himself with not a whole ton of talent. So I still give the upper hand to Las Vegas, and then the Chargers, all those weapons they have, and of course Kansas City. You can't ever count them out.
Right.
So you could argue that Denver has a lot to prove as well, and Russell's got to work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been big on the Chargers this whole offseason, as Corey will attest to. So kind of interesting thing, and kind of to segue back to the Titans a little bit, is, that is your divisional rival this season. The AFC South is going to be playing the AFC West.
Yes.
So, and I have made this comment, and no slight towards you guys at all, but when you look at the landscape of the AFC, I am of the opinion that there will only be one team that comes out of the AFC South. Now, you have between the Jaguars and the Texans, we can go ahead and cast them off for the sake of this argument, but also take a look at the Bengals last year. Everyone was saying they're going to be fourth in the league, and they're in the Super Bowl. So you never say never, because the NFL. That's why we love the NFL.
Over the last couple of years, the Titans have fared well against the Chiefs. They've played them really well. They lost the AFC Championship game, but beat them twice in Nashville already over the last 3 years. Beat them once in Kansas City, and I'm not saying that's going to happen again. But the Titans have this thing, man, where they always tend to play to whatever the other team's standards are.
I think that's normal in the NFL.
You lose to the Texans. You lose to the Steelers, who weren't that very good. You lose to the Jets, but then you go and you just annihilate the Kansas City Chiefs last year. You handle Indianapolis, who many people said was going to run away with the division last year. I mean, so you go and you beat the Bills again in primetime football. So the Titans tend to play to other teams' levels. It just depends on what week that is and what week that happens.
Sure.
No, I think that's a very good point. And I do, when you look at a division, you're trying to figure out who's going to come out on top. There are two characteristics that I tend to look at when judging a team in general, whether it be prior to or after a season. Then these two individuals tend to get all the credit. We mentioned it last night on the pod. They get either all the credit or all the blame. And of course, I'm talking about the quarterback or the head coach. So that's why I'm going to turn things first. We're going to talk a little bit about Vrabel first. Aaron, I think you had something for the guys on Vrabel, and then I want to get a little bit more into Tannehill in that QB room.
So, I live in Buckeye country, so we're no stranger to Mike Vrabel. That's for sure. He is regarded, I would say, as one of the most highly respected players coaches, for whatever you want to call that. The players love to play for him. He's that guy where you're like, he's been there, he's been in the trenches, he knows what he's doing. From an X's and O's perspective, I'm curious, from an outside perspective, how do you view him as an X's and O's coach as opposed to just that quote unquote players coach?
I view him as a smart one, honestly. He loves to go he doesn't mind going all the way down to the last wire if that's what it takes to figure out, okay, this is where we need to place this guy, this is where we need to play. I mean, Adrian Peterson came in for like a game and a half last year, barely for a cup of coffee, and it looked like he was doing decent, and the Titans were done with him right away. So he's very, very, I don't want to use the word analytical, because the Titans are one of the last teams to use to hire an analytical department. But when in terms of just like X's and O's, he goes very, very deep in it. I mean, I've always enjoyed him from the very beginning. And like you said, you can tell that the players really enjoy him too.
There's been a few instances in my mind that stick out to me, kind of piggyback on the players coach thing, where he truly, whatever the players want, he's going to do. A few years back, it's his first year. They played in London against the Chargers. Down to the wire, they had a chance to kick a field goal to tie it, but he goes for two for the win, and they lose.
Yep.
They lost the game.
That's his first season.
And so he does not mind going big or going home. Another game, if y'all remember the Derrick Henry 4-touchdown game, 99-yard run, that whole thing. Derrick wanted to come out and let who was it Deion Lewis, Brett?
Yeah.
Wanted Deion to get a touch and get it. It was a 1 yard, easy touchdown against the Jags that night. And no, Mike said, "No, Derrick, get in there, you do it." And so give him another touchdown. So just things like that makes you enjoy pulling for Mike Vrabel. He's very easy to root for. The if you guys watched half of the media availability he does around here, he is a smart ass with these media people. He's not afraid to give them a hard time. So he's a very likable guy. But X's and O's wise, it's a lot of the same stuff year after year that we're noticing. A lot of play action.
Why wouldn't you, right?
Oh,
I mean, you line 22 in the backfield, that you have to respect it. You have to.
Yeah.
And it's not like Tannehill can't move too,
Right.
No.
Right.
And he had a lot of plays with his legs.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys too, Vrabel, is that once you earn his respect, he's got your back no matter what.
Speaking of
Because,
got
you
your
know,
back, if I had to pick one NFL coach, I'm going to get in a bar fight, and he's going to have my
have
back.
no
It's going to be
doubt
Mike
about it.
Vrabel.
I mean, have you seen him out there in pregame? It's
Yeah.
almost like he's got pads on with the guys still.
I think the
But,
only contender is Dan Campbell.
Yeah, Dan
Yeah.
Campbell would be in there for sure.
For sure.
But
For sure.
like his I believe it was his first season, 6 games in with Marcus, 2 and 4 stars. He's like, I got to move on. Tannehill came in and just balled out right away. It's been his team ever since, Derrick Henry, that the 99-yard against Jacksonville, 4 touchdowns. That was his breakout game. The Titans have rode his back ever since. Kevin Byard, 2 All-Pro seasons. So he's the guy that once you really earn his respect, he's going to trust you and he's going to ride with you all the way.
I like it. I like it a lot. So we talked about the head coach, and we started talking about Tanny a little bit there. This is a bit of an enigma here with Ryan Tannehill. I mean, obviously you threw a high contract at him, but I am one to say that quarterbacks are at a premium in this league. Obviously, we see that with the price tag, but I've said this a few times on the show that I think it's the top 5. Maybe we've expanded that out to maybe the top 10. Then there's a big drop off with the middle, and then there is a severe drop off to the bottom 5, right? There are guys that like that middle group is so vast. There's guys that don't even start that are in that middle group. Like last year, I would put Mitch Trubisky probably right around that middle group. He's serviceable. He can get it done for you. Derek Carr and Tannehill kind of at the top of that middle group, not in that elite echelon by any means, but they're definitely not at the bottom end of that by any means either. So I don't know if you guys agree with that thought, and if you do, using a 3rd-round pick, obviously, whatever, it's a 3rd-round pick on Malik. Where is your mindset as a fan base if you're going to speak collectively for everybody in the greater Nashville area and Tighten Up Nation?
Which we know you do. So that's
obviously. That's why you're on the fucking show, guys. Okay? That's why you're on the show. If you had to speak collectively for them, what's the mindset of the fan base? And does there need to be a snapback to like realism and saying, Tannehill is the guy for the long term? Where you fall on that?
So we got a running joke here in Nashville that Titans Facebook is the place where the dumbasses post their thoughts and opinions.
So Facebook.
Yeah, just Facebook.
Exactly. We already saw things this week, and I posted on Twitter of fans already saying Malik Willis will be the greatest Titan quarterback in franchise.
I saw that shit.
He hasn't even practiced a down of football yet in training camp. Let's pump the brakes. So it's things like that.
Give the kid a chance.
But we talk about Tannehill. There's an out after this season. It'd be an $18 million dead cap hit on him, but this is the year.
That's not bad.
It's not bad. This is the year, though. It's either if you win the division, how do you not ride with him another year? But if it falls and you lose, 4 or 5 games within the division, you're not competitive. You have another 15, 16 interception kind of year. You like you said, you found a steal in the draft in Malik Willis that fell to your lap.
Yeah.
It's going to take an entire year for him to develop. How do you not pull the trigger on Malik at that point? I think this is make or break for Ryan. There's a ton of pressure on him. We've seen the peaks of Ryan. At one point, you could compare his stats with Patrick Mahomes, and they were neck and neck. There were some stats that Ryan was much better in at a certain point when Ryan was at his peak, mid-2020, 2019 with Arthur Smith in that offense. So there's so much pressure on Ryan. It's just now, again, like I talked about, it's the weapons. Can he be comfortable with the weapons, the new weapons? Kind of, been a rotating door with certain players, certain position groups. So it's on him at this point.
Yeah, he's shown you. Tannehill has shown you that he can win games. And if you're down by 10 points going into the 4th quarter, you're not out of the game. He's shown you that he knows how to bring you back. He can win you the football games. It's can he win you the game? Obviously, we don't know that yet. We saw how the playoffs was last year. So it's almost to the point now to where after this year, it's like, okay, we're there again, but are we stagnant again? Do we need to move on? And Malik, we all knew that when we drafted Malik, yeah, that's awesome. Malik's going to be the quarterback one day. But this year, it's still going to be Tannehill's team. Malik's going to be a project. And I don't want people to get overly like Ryan Tannehill throws. If Ryan Tannehill throws 1 interception week 1 against the Giants, people are going to be clamoring for Malik. He's not going to come in and take the job like that. He's got a lot of work to do. He's got so much skills. But even Pat O'Hara, the quarterback's coach, and Todd Downing, the offensive coordinator said, yeah, we're working on him with snap cadence. We're working on him with running the huddle, with moving outside the pocket and being comfortable. So there's things like that take time to develop, and learning from a guy like Tannehill, who knows how to win in the league and has proven that, does a lot for him. So obviously this year it's still Tannehill's team.
Well, is he going to learn from him?
That.
Is he going to learn from him? Tanny wasn't all about that at the start. I was just obviously making a joke there, but I don't think it's Tannehill's responsibility to mentor him. But it was just when that comment came out, if you guys don't know what we're talking about, one of the first press conferences that Ryan Tannehill had after they drafted Malik Willis is, are you going to take him under your wing? Are you going to mentor him? He's like, I don't really think that's my job. And kind of people blew it up all over social media. So I guess where'd you guys land on that? I kind of agree with him. It's not his fucking job, but
it's not at all. Vrabel and John Robinson cleaned it up after that and just saying that's our job to do that. Ryan has even said too, and now, I mean, you can see with the videos that are being posted around practice and whatnot, they're going to have a relationship. Malik is going to learn from Ryan. They have to. Yep. They're in the same quarterback room. They're in the same meetings. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Right.
But I'm with you. It was a quote taken out of proportion, and kind of piggybacking to what Brett said about Tannehill not winning the big games. So there's been 3 times now in the last 3 playoffs where he lost the AFC title, lost against the Ravens, and then now lost against Cincinnati. He can get you there. He's 31-14 as a starter with the Titans. That's pretty good. I would take that for if I'm almost
especially compared to where you were before too.
100%. Marcus couldn't get you there. So I think we all enjoy rooting for Tannehill. He's a fun player to watch. He's not your sexy, Patrick Mahomes.
Really nice guy.
Nothing like that. But he's easy to root for. He's got the finger roll that we all enjoy watching. Not that when he runs it in, but can he win you the big game? And it's shown you that he can't. And so at some point you have to move on. I think that's why they drafted Malik.
Well, I was going to say this is definitely something I have a ton of experience with as a Cleveland Browns fan. I can tell you that. And I'm certainly not saying that the Titans are going to struggle this year, but let's just say hypothetically, and I think you guys have a bye week 6. So if it does get off to a rocky start, when a team is struggling, the most popular guy in town is the backup quarterback. 100%. It's very hard for the fan base to take that 30,000-foot view and say, no, let's look at the long view here. Yeah, we might be 2-3 or something like that, but we can still come out of this and still have a very good season, make the playoffs. How do you fight back against the fan base on that and allow him to really develop in his rookie season so he can succeed later?
See, we're at the point now, too, to where when we start the season, I'm not convinced that Malik Willis is even going to be the number 2 quarterback. And that's nothing against Malik Willis. That's just because Logan Woodside is going into year 4 as the backup quarterback. He's seen action. I mean, he's obviously started all the preseason games, but he's seen action in the regular season. He can hold it down for the most part. Like, he's not going to go out there like some backup quarterbacks and go 0 for 7 with 3 picks. Like, Logan Woodside can hold it down, and the Titans know that too. And I think it's so much that they really, really, really just want to develop Malik as much as they can. Like Malik, I'm not saying he's going to be inactive on some game days, but like if he is, I don't think we'll all be shocked. So if the Titans start out 2-3 going into the bye week, they've played really well under Mike Vrabel coming out of the bye week the entire time he's been in Nashville. So that's when they really just sit down with Ryan or whatever the issue is and would just figure it out. But right now it's truly all Ryan Tannehill's team.
I mean, I can absolutely relate in terms of having Andy Dalton, and I'll be honest with you, I see a lot of similarities between Dalton and between Tannehill, and I don't mean that as an insult. Listen, I mean Andy Dalton is one of the winningest quarterbacks in Bengals history, and you've got guys like Boomer Esiason and Kenny Anderson in that, like Carson Palmer as well. Obviously, the shorter time period there, but still a very good quarterback, right? And Andy Dalton, I mean, I think he, 2 or 3 division championships in the AFC North under Andy Dalton, 12-5 season, MVP candidate under Andy Dalton, which is mind blowing, right?
Right.
But same thing, can win you win the regular season, even in primetime games, man. And I'm not saying Tannehill has this, but even in primetime games, the lights come on and Andy turns off. He shrivels up. It was something about the stage that really didn't allow him to be what he was really capable of. And every single time that happened, when's AJ McCarron going to be the starter? When are they going to put AJ McCarron in? And especially after that 2015 game where Dalton was hurt and AJ McCarron was the quarterback and they almost beat the Steelers in that game, going into that next season, it was we have to start AJ McCarron. It has to be the guy. I mean, now you're looking back in hindsight, look, this guy hasn't started anywhere he's gone. There's a reason Dalton was in his place. So if I would just coming from that place, Aaron's been in that place to a fan base. It's like, look, trust the coaches. There's a reason the guy is out there. And I even saw a clip today, Malik, rolling out to his left and throwing off his right foot there. It just didn't look comfortable.
No,
just didn't look comfortable.
In our group text, it didn't. I mean, it looked awkward. He looked like a rookie, a guy that hadn't done a whole lot in college.
And I wonder if any of that has to do with the fact I'm not trying to discredit the Liberty football program or anything like that, but I have to think that the level of coaching that you would get at a place like Liberty is not the same as you would get at the University of Florida or Alabama or Texas or Tennessee. Just, go on and on and on. I wonder if any of that has something to do with it, because you see a lot of these guys that come out of schools like Wake Forest. I'll say Jesse Bates, for instance, a third-round draft pick. He comes out of a school like Wake Forest, probably doesn't have the utilities and everything and the infrastructure built up to help a guy like that excel. But when he gets to a level where things are a lot more level, right, with the coaching, the facilities, everything is a lot more equal playing field, you almost see those guys that have that high ceiling, have those raw intangibles and things like that, just fucking explode. Just absolutely explode.
Great point. We can kind of relate to that with Kevin Byard. Middle Tennessee State, went to college there.
Sure.
And a two-time All-Pro now. So third-round pick, same way as Jesse. I don't think it really matters where you come from. The teams are going to find you, and I think fit matters, and I think development matters. The Titans were lucky for a few years with a really good secondary group and a really good coach by the name of Kerry Combs.
Yeah.
Was that?
I know Kerry Combs. I played football against him in high school.
Did you?
I did, yeah. He was a head coach at Coleraine High School, and I played at Fairfield down here not down. I'm in Michigan now, but in Greater Cincinnati. He was the head coach there, won multiple state championships. But, University of Cincinnati, Ohio State as well.
Yeah. We loved Kerry Combs here, and I think that entire group kind of excelled under him, and that's kind of where he kind of flourished under Kerry Combs. But I was just relating those two scenarios together.
Speaking of coaching too, I going back to the Ryan Tannehill discussion and talking about with Andy Dalton and all that. 2 years ago, Ryan Tannehill had his best season ever as he's been since he's been in the NFL, and that was under Arthur Smith, who was a fantastic
head coach of the Falcons now.
Yes, yeah. And the year that he leaves and the year that Todd Downing comes in as the offensive coordinator, Ryan Tannehill, they're like, hey, he's throwing a lot of interceptions in training camp. He's throwing a couple more interceptions than you would like to see as we head into the preseason. I think that the coaching change has something to do with it too, because Todd Downing was an OC once before when the Raiders were still in Oakland. They went 8-8 that year when there were still 16 games. I don't remember who the quarterback was at the time. I have to go back and look, but the quarterback was right near the middle of yards, passing yards, interceptions, touchdowns, and that's kind of what you saw from Tannehill last year. So for me too, it's with the coaching change in year 2 as Todd Downing as the OC. Can Tannehill, along with Downing, both take that next jump to make the offense even better?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so, kind of switching gears, one more topic on the Titans before we kind of open it up and talk some general NFL with you boys. If you got the time, appreciate you coming by. Again, we are live right now with the guys from Second and Victory. Go ahead and drop them a follow on Twitter. You got their Twitter handle scrolling down there on the bottom. And you guys are on Spotify and Apple as well, if I'm not mistaken, Apple Podcast. Right. So, go ahead and subscribe to their channels. Give them a listen. If you're here for the Titans, go ahead and they got you covered. So, Derrick Henry. I mean,
dog.
Gotta love him. Gotta love him. Dog.
The game. Sorry.
He's a.
You know what? I can live with that one. We're both. Let's all admit our biases, right?
Yeah.
I love Nick Chubb.
He loves Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Don't tell me.
But I'm not. That's not a hill I'm going to die on against Derrick Henry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to tell me anybody else? I'll probably die on that hill. But I think I can live with that one.
Yeah.
No, and you mentioned Jonathan Taylor. It's interesting that you say that. A lot of people touting him as the next one, and it's hard to not like that take because he's younger, less tread on more tread on the tires, less hits taken, all of these things, and not to mention he's just a really fucking good running back, right? I don't think anybody is going to be doubting that at all. That he is just a really good running back, right? How much longer is the king wearing the crown?
It's a great question. We talked about it Tuesday night on our podcast about, is this the year they need to focus on lessening the workload? They drafted Hassan Haskins from Michigan in the fourth round. And I think, too, kind of going back off what we were talking about earlier with Mike Vrabel, and the Titans do a lot of things where it makes you scratch your head, but then in the long run, you're like, that actually kind of made some sense. I don't think Hassan Haskins is going to start this season by any means, but he's going to play some significant snaps. How long, Corey? It's a great question. I do think he's got another year left. But after that, I'm not sure. I think it all depends on kind of what we see. We see his workout videos. He's a natural athlete, a natural freak. He's a gym rat. But he's got the mentality of I still got it. And I think he may come to the season with a chip on his shoulder. He's missed 8 games last year. It took 3-4 weeks for somebody to pass him in yards. I mean, he had a significant lead on the rest of the league in rushing yards last season. So I think he's got another year. I don't think we'll see another 2,000-yard year from Derek, but I do think another 1,500-yard season is coming.
Sure.
I really think that. I mean, I think he's got 2 to 3 more elite years left in him. Now, is he going to lead the league in rushing every single year? Probably not. But I don't think that you're going to be like he's. Like when the Titans had Bishop Sankey, my gosh, as the starting running back, you're
sure.
a horrible Derrick Henry is way better than a good Bishop Sankey. So it's not going to be close to being okay, after the season, all right, the Titans got to get away from this guy.
Right.
He's going to have a great year this year. Next, and I think the Titans believe that too, or else they wouldn't be having contract extension talks with him. But after this year, and the year after that, he's still going to be the starting running back for this team if he stays. And he's still going to be good, still going to be efficient. And I think having somebody like Hassan Haskins who runs to a similar style and can catch the ball out of the backfield as well helps a lot with taking the workload off Derek and still letting him still be extremely efficient for the next 2 to 3 years in this offense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. And Austin, you had mentioned it too. So, and honestly, Brett, you did too as well. So kind of carrying that workload, right? So we were just kind of jabbing a little bit back and forth between the Chubb Henry thing. And again, that's not a hill I'm willing to die on, but part of the reason I think Chubb is not in that conversation is because he doesn't get that workload. You have the Chubb Hunt combination.
Yeah, right.
So where I think Chubb might have a longer shelf life, I also think Derrick Henry is just a freak of nature. So can he buck that trend of the running backs where we know there's a shelf life with running backs? Giving a running back a second contract is usually a kiss of death in the NFL. And that's why you see teams going in the second, third, fourth, fifth rounds and getting guys because you can plug and play them pretty well as long as you have a good offensive line. Derrick Henry is, I think, in a different class of running back, and you see it all the time. So does he have a year left? I think no doubt. I think the question is it 2 or 3?
Agreed.
Because I haven't seen him slow down, and every year, and I don't want to make this a fantasy discussion because that's not really all we talk about, but every year I'm like, I don't know if I can take him because I just feel like his legs are going to explode this year.
He does something every single year though. Like last week against Buffalo, he got to that second level for 75 yards, took off, and scored the touchdown, and it changed the game. And he had a chance to do it again for the second time. So, you get to that point in each season, you're like, okay, is he slowing down or is there something different? And there's always something like you said. He's just in that different category of okay, that's one of those guys when you look at him, you're like, oh, that's just Derrick Henry. You can't compare it to anybody else.
Yeah, I would say compare to someone like Ezekiel Elliott, right? Like when he came out of college, he came in right away and was just a freak.
Yeah.
And now he's just not. There was way too much tread on the tires. They gave him way too much money, and now it's a void of a contract. They had to get rid of Cooper. They had to clear some cap space.
100%.
Do you think though? Did that have anything to play in the AJ Brown part of it too, though?
Do you want to go ahead, Austin?
If we go back to and remember the Derrick Henry contract, it was a very team-friendly contract. When it happened, you were just kind of like, that's it? That's all he got?
And you know what?
I felt the same way with Chubb.
Yeah. And I thought the exact same thing with Joe Mixon. Honestly, the exact same thing with Joe Mixon. It was like a 4-year, $48 million deal. I was like, really? That's it? Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And whatever the reason was, we like to think it was because the culture, he liked being here. He understood the program. He understood playing for Vrabel, John Robinson, yada, yada, yada. It's kind of what you wanted with A.J. Brown. AJ's a diva. He's a different kind of player than Derek.
A wide receiver.
He's a receiver.
Exactly.
Yes.
That big time money when he probably doesn't deserve it yet. I think Derek knows that. Again, if we're kind of talking about it, I didn't want to get my bias in the way. I do think he's got a year left, 2 to 3. Oh my God, it's a Hall of Fame career most likely.
It's gravy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're probably due for another contract,
Yeah.
an extension at some point. So I think that's something else to even think about for himself. Of I got hurt last year. I got a chip on my shoulder, but I'm also I need a couple more years left. I need some more money.
But
Well,
I think you got a guy coming up though that you might not need Derrick Henry.
Possibly, seriously,
it's a good
possibly.
chance. Yeah.
I mean, is it Foreman? Is that?
He's in Carolina now.
Foreman's
Deontay Foreman's in
Oh,
Carolina.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But they kept Dontrell Hilliard. It was Foreman and Hilliard.
Okay.
They kept
Okay.
Hilliard. Foreman got more money elsewhere because the Titans are going to be able to pay to keep him.
He. I mean, when Henry, he was the
He was a
number one when
stud.
Henry was out, right? That was your main back, and I mean,
Stud.
he ran just like him too. Just ran
Yeah.
harder as fuck, man.
We called him Baby Henry.
Yeah, it's a great name.
That's one thing too. Like one thing that Mike Vrabel and John Robinson do so good. They find guys that fit the mold of the Titans offense and of the Titans team. Because like if you listen to Robert Woods speaking today or Caleb
Bobby
Farley or
Trees.
Rashad Weaver, yeah, like all of those guys are like, man, I'm just trying to do anything to help the team, whatever I need. If I'm playing 5 less plays, if I'm doing this, like today, Robert Woods was talking about doing ACL rehab with Caleb Farley. Who's going into his second year, and so stuff like that. So, like Deontay Foreman came in, took over last year. Dontrell Hilliard in the Miami game last year, that was kind of his breakout game as a Titan. So that's when the Titans saw, okay, maybe we can keep somebody like this. And you talked about the contract with maybe is that why they let AJ go? Well, they know that they have Jeffrey Simmons coming up to pay. Christian Fulton's getting close to a brand new contract. He's a really good cornerback for this team. They're not going to want to let him walk. Amani Hooker is a fantastic safety, an underrated safety who him and Kevin Byard combined can be a top 3 safety duo in the league. They're going to have to pay him coming up soon. He's going into year 4, and he just turned 24 years old. So he's got a long time left in the league. There's guys on the defensive line, too, that you're not going to want to let go. So it's more or less just thinking about, okay, what's the best deal long-term for this team versus what are we doing right now?
Oh, I like it. And you have to think about it, especially with a position of running back where you're going to get those bang-ups. He's going to be hurt. It's very rare for a running back to start every single game of the season. It's extremely rare. Yeah. Even guys that don't get catastrophic injuries, just whether it's like a turf toe kind of thing or a knee is bothering them or a hip or something like that, they just take so much contact that it's really just rare for them to make it through the whole season.
Away from it either, he's not a guy.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can ask Josh Norman about that.
One of the most notorious clips in the last 5-10 years, maybe. It's just
absolutely
embarrassing. So, all right. So I appreciate you guys again coming by, talking some Titans. Sure. Absolutely awesome. Again, we got the guys at Second and Victory here. Go follow them on Twitter, listen to them on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. On our Twitter, we've been running something with all these new helmets and the throwbacks coming out. We've been doing a little bit of a bracket. Ooh. And if you're listening right now, first of all, go subscribe to our YouTube page. But secondly, head over to Twitter because we're in the championship round right now. It is the white Bengal helmet versus the matte black Panthers helmet.
Oh,
battle of the jungle cats right now. Panthers fans came out in hordes for this one.
They came in late and they're coming in strong.
They came in late. They're coming in strong. Currently at about 1,700 votes. Panthers are up 56% to 44%. We got 16 hours left in the poll, so we're not even halfway through yet.
We're not even halfway. And at one point, it was like 70-30 Bengals to.
It was heavy.
So, hey, man, if Chris, keep pounding crew has been.
If Chris was here, you guys are speaking his love language right now. 100%. Chris loves the retro stuff. He's all for it.
Even before we move on here, I need a throwback Oilers.
Hey,
they're talking about it.
That's
bust out a Warren Moon jersey. What we got going on over here?
He's got some sick stuff.
It's in there. I really do have one. Truly, I got it for Christmas a few years back.
Awesome.
We've been banging on the table for the Oilers stuff to come back.
Yeah.
And the rumor is it's next year. So we should be seeing some Oilers stuff next year. I think we'll see more of the Tennessee Oilers stuff because right now, if you go look at the Titans tweets and like the Titans Pro Shop. It's where the official store. It's all the Tennessee 1997 stuff they're putting out, like the inaugural season. So I think we see more of that next season. But I do have this bad boy.
Oh,
It's a signed Bruce Matthews that it's
sexy.
my prized possession that he wore this. So I will always hang my hat on the Oilers stuff, dude. It's
that's awesome.
The most classic, I think, NFL looks.
I love the last time you saw him wear it too was 2009 when they played in the Hall of Fame game against, I believe it was Buffalo.
The Bills,
It's one of the coolest plays I've ever seen too. If you go watch the highlights for that game, there was a punter. His name was AJ Trapasso. Okay, Michael Griffin was the safety at the time. He's sitting there. He's going to be the gunner. Michael Griffin all of a sudden comes in motion. They snap the ball. There's nobody there. So the two guys on the left side who would have been blocking Michael Griffin have a free shot at AJ Trapasso to go block the kick. Michael Griffin runs behind Trapasso. Trapasso fakes the handoff behind his back to Michael Griffin, takes off around the left side where there's nobody on the field, 50 yards, touchdown. Trapasso ended up not making the team, unfortunately, because the Titans signed Brett Kern, who's awesome now. But it was one of the coolest plays I've ever seen in the Oilers uniforms.
That's pretty sick. This is essentially an old AFC Central meetup right here.
Yeah, right.
100%. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I like it. Bengals, Browns, and Oilers. Very good.
Steelers and Jags here.
Yeah. So I mentioned the Panthers a little bit, but yeah. So it's not only throwbacks. Like you got the old Falcons throwback, you got the Patriots center throwback, but you're getting some like the stealth black of the Jets. Obviously, the white Bengal tiger, which again, Bengals fans have been pounding the table for that one for a long time.
Right.
What I say?
Texans red.
The Texans red is sexy as fuck, dude. That is clean. That is beautiful helmet.
I love the old school. I was hammering for it on our Twitter page to get the little Giants helmet going. Just
I like those too. And the Jets,
I do too.
I like
there's just something about the nostalgia
jersey.
of it,
Yeah.
right?
I agree. The Jets,
absolutely.
the black helmets now too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the stealth black helmets for the Jets, and similarly, obviously with Carolina, I think it's their evil side or evil twin. I think is what they're calling it. It's pretty slick with the black uniforms. I think it'll look nice, but. A lot going on in Carolina as well as we look into the NFL today. Their newly acquired Aaron's ex-girlfriend Baker Mayfield coming out onto the field, getting some times with the ones, and the word on the street is him and DJ Moore are like a lamb and tuna fish. They're perfect. They're perfect together. And I'm just curious, Aaron, your thoughts initially after hearing that. Where do you think that QB battle ends up, and then we'll kick it over to the other guys as well.
I mean, Baker's going to win it. I think Baker is absolutely the better quarterback than Sam Darnold. I think when you take a look at that division, I think when you take a look at their schedule, and frankly, watching Baker Mayfield his whole career, I think they'll win 6 games. I think he'll do what he does every year. He'll be fine. He'll be he was injured last year. There's no doubt about it. But he's a one-read quarterback. Obviously, with DJ Moore there, that's great. Probably one of the better receivers he's played with lately. I mean, OBJ obviously was, a good name, but he never really had that connection. I would also just say, I heard the thing you're telling me about DJ Moore is the exact same story I heard about him and OBJ in training camp.
Yeah.
The thing that Baker loves to do is complete 3 receptions to 6 to 7 different receivers. So you can never really get in a groove with that receiver, right? Where you see guys that are like 8 catches for 112. You're not going to get that out of Baker unless they just absolutely force feed it. And, obviously he's never really had a guy like McCaffrey. Baker is absolutely not a check down guy. So I think that'll be interesting.
When you say it never had a guy like McCaffrey, you mean the versatility of being able to catch out of the backfield and run out of the backfield and just the raw.
I mean, he had Kareem Hunt for a little
bit,
which was great. But really, when you look at Baker's career, he had a good rookie season, and then after that, defense started figuring him out, and then he had an 8-game stretch where he was good. And it's and I'm glad that we have the Titans guys on here too, because I don't know how you guys feel about this, or I'd love to hear you guys' opinions about that situation too. But there's nothing wrong with moving on from a guy when he's not going to win the big game. You know what I mean? Like I heard you guys talking about it earlier. Look at the landscape in the AFC. You got Mahomes, you got Herbert, you got Burrow, you got Allen, you got Lamar Jackson. All of these guys are just far and above what Baker's ceiling is, where we need the sum of all parts to make this machine work. Yeah. And I don't think the Panthers have that on their roster.
Man, DJ Moore to me is probably, if he's not number one, he's a top 3 underrated wide receiver in the NFL.
Sure.
Wow. DJ Moore is an absolute stud. So from my vantage point, obviously I don't follow the Browns as close, but like from my vantage point, I was kind of like,
you must have a happier life, man.
This is I was like, this is what DJ's been missing, is that guy who can just let the ball rip down the field, because DJ's not afraid to go up the ladder and get aggressive to get the football. He's not going to go out there and talk crap and all that. And so that's just the way I viewed it when they got Baker. Is like, okay, this is what DJ's been missing. Now, are they going to make the playoffs? No. Are they going to win the division? No, unless something catastrophic happens. But like, just from an outsider standpoint, to me, I was like, okay, this is a good fit. But an issue, I don't know if you guys saw it, but in 2018, I believe, when Baker was drafted number 1 overall, what's his name? Ben McAdoo, the new offensive coordinator there, was not coaching at the time, but still did his own draft rankings and was not a fan of Baker Mayfield at all. Right. He talked about how he's a good leader, but he doesn't like the way he throws, doesn't like the way he gets outside the pocket, and had him ranked as, I think, the 5th best quarterback in that draft. And so that's not a good comparison that you want when you go to a brand new season with a new offensive coordinator, with a coaching staff that is very likely on their way out. So it's not the best look right now in Carolina for anybody, but for me, from an outsider standpoint, pairing Baker with DJ Moore looks to be like it would be a good fit.
And I think they only go as far as CMC goes, and we know right now he's not been going very far. Years.
It's a shame, man.
Yeah,
it really is.
It is. It really is.
The same. Seriously, I saw NFL post a tweet. I think it was he's going number 1 in fantasy mocks. I'm thinking,
no chance.
I hope I'm not going number 1. I hope I'm not the number 1 pick. He's not my pick.
Yeah. I think Aaron and I are in a fantasy league, so I got to watch what I say.
I can't give him away too much. No, but I agree with you. I let that be someone else's headache.
Yeah. Dude, I almost look at CMC when you compare it to another sport as in Mike Trout. Like, obviously Mike Trout is one of the best guys that there is. He has the insane amount of talent, but like, every single year, it's okay, the Angels aren't very good, or man, Mike Trout's down again. Like the other day, he came out with a rare back disorder that he might have now. So it's like every single year there was something with Mike Trout that didn't quite let him get to the best of the best. And I think it's the same way with CMC. The Panthers have never been the best around him. Every single year there's something there that just quite held him back. And like it just, like y'all said, it sucks to see it happen that way.
Yeah. Brett, I have to tip my cap to you on that one, because I absolutely love cross sports analogies.
And I got another one in the chamber for you.
I'm glad you liked it.
I got another one in the chamber for you. You had mentioned that when it's not your guy, when you find out he's not the guy that wins the big game, or can't win the big game, or can't put you over the hump.
I know where that is.
I'm a Utah Jazz fan.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I feel the exact same way about Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I feel the exact same way about Donovan Mitchell. Listen, the Utah Jazz front office did everything they could to put a fantastic team together on the court, and they did, in fact, put a fantastic team together on the court, being the best record in the NBA 2 years ago, number 1 overall seed in the West. And Donovan Mitchell simply just isn't that motherfucker. He is not that guy that is going to take over the game and win. He's not LeBron. He's not Steph. He's not Luka. He's not Giannis. He's not, he's not the Joker. He's not go on and on and on and on, right? It's almost like the Utah Jazz are like a poor man's Boston Celtics were this year. They didn't really have that
Austin
guy.
Austin is a major Celtics fan, so you're hitting right square.
So you fucking feel what I'm saying, though, is that Tatum was not that motherfucker in the finals. He just wasn't that guy turning the ball over as often as they did. It was just awful, right? And I am a guy that picked the Celtics to win that series, so I feel you on that one mildly. I don't think I could ever feel as bad as you. But the point that I'm trying to make is that when you find out that he's not that, it's time to move on and get max value out of them. So if I'm the Utah Jazz, I'm definitely trading Donovan Mitchell before the season starts. There's absolutely no chance I'm not doing that. I'm getting max value. I'm not trotting him out there with this fucking JV roster that they have where the next best guy is Jordan Clarkson. The The Browns aren't in that situation, though. The Browns have a great roster. There are a couple of holes, but what NFL team doesn't have a couple of holes, right?
Everybody.
Or areas that need to be proven. They're great on paper, but we need to see it in action, right? So it was just weird for me to see a team do it so quickly, I guess, because I come from an experience where when a guy has taken you to a place that you've never been before, you ride that until the fucking plane crashes into the mountainside, right?
Yeah.
A la Andy Dalton, a la Marvin Lewis for 16 fucking years, right? So it was very interesting, and I think it's a tip of the cap to the Browns front office and the way that they were able to move so quickly. And I mean, if anybody's been watching football lately, they've seen what the Browns have been doing in the front office, and it's pretty intriguing. Not to bring in the recent contract that they have on their belt. Unless you'd like to go there, Austin, I'd be more than happy to talk to Sean Watson with you.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. So, God
damn it!
Hey,
every week.
The moment I found out you're a Browns fan, I was like, I gotta ask him.
You can't. I've been a complete open book. Corey will attest to this too.
The only thing Aaron tries, he's like, no, I'll let him do it. I'll let him do it. Go ahead.
Down here we have there's no Browns fans. There's a bunch of Colts fans because of the Peyton Manning ties. Then you might have the weird asses who like the Niners or the Rams. You're like, you're not real fans. Shut up. But from a diehard Browns fans perspective, man, because we saw Deshaun Watson for 4 years absolutely, terrorize us.
All out.
So I was very happy to see him leave.
Right.
But not on these conditions. So I would love to get kind of your full breakdown on him as the person, him as the player. What do you believe? What do you not believe? I'd love to kind of get your whole take on it.
So I was pretty adamant about I don't want them to make this trade before the trade happened.
Okay.
I was very loud about that. I don't like the idea of inviting the wolf into the hen house. You know what I mean? Like it's just not what I want out of my football team. Now that's Deshaun Watson, the person, right? Now I'll go back into that too. Players like Deshaun Watson do not become available in their prime. I think that's why you saw the package that he got.
Yep.
And the other thing too is
contract.
Yeah, the Browns are the team that landed him, but there are like 12 other teams that attempted to, 4 other teams that were granted the right to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So from a fan's perspective, it's like, okay, yeah, we won this weird shit sweepstakes, but now all these other fan bases are off the hook because their team didn't catch the fish, if you know what I mean. But I don't think that exonerates them. And we all know football, right? It is a win first league. The NFL has no problem. Look at any fan base across the country. There's something that they're going, yeah, well, he's a piece of shit, but he's our piece of shit. And I don't feel that way about Deshaun yet because I haven't seen him play it down. I'm never going to buy his jersey. I'm still not happy about it. But also as a diehard Browns fan for my whole life, what am I going to do? Just completely change my personality because of one person that got signed by the franchise? I'm going to go down in my basement and get rid of all my memorabilia and get rid of everything about it. No, I'm pissed off about it. And again, Corey, please back me up here because it was really, really hard for me to come to grips with, and I'm still not there. There's half. I am not the person that is like, well, innocent until proven guilty. Good old stars and stripes, man.
Aaron literally went and donated to a victims charity immediately after the Browns.
I felt dirty. I was like, I have to do something to put.
Wow,
that's like
he immediately went and did that, and I tweeted. Or I sent the tweet to him, where it was the middle of the workday. I sent it to him, and he's just like, I feel nothing right now. I have no idea how to feel because I understand what he's saying. I mean, you have gotten one of the top 10, at least when he was playing, top 10, top 7 quarterbacks in the league. Now is your quarterback.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about it is just like trying to balance that with fanhood and separating it. Kind of been there with the Bengals. Obviously, everybody, they've got a reputation, or they had at least in the Marvin Lewis era. You look at guys like Vontaze Burfict, not so much off the field, more on the field, kind of like Ndamukong Suh-esque. And then you look at a guy like Joe Mixon, that came into the league. The reason he was there in the second round for the Cincinnati Bengals is because he knocked the fuck out of a girl in a restaurant in college.
Yeah,
that's why he was there. That's why he was available to the Bengals.
Yep.
And the thing that I've I've come back and said on that, it's kind of like it's not a habitual thing that we keep. We don't. You've never heard about Joe Mixon fucking up since he's been in the league. You never heard a single thing about him being a douchebag or a bad guy since that time. So yes, that was bad. Let's recognize how awful and heinous that act was. What has he done since that time? Right? We're humans. We change and evolve and learn and grow. Players are humans too. So we can look at it at an off the field aspect. I'm not saying I put Deshaun Watson in that category. Let me be very clear about that.
Either, yeah.
There is a case of habitual action with Deshaun Watson, right? We've seen it. There's 24. I believe now there's only 4 that remain. I believe he settled with 20. Was it 20 or 22 that he has settled with since?
20, I think, yeah.
That are no longer, hanging over his head, for lack of a better term. But one thing that is hanging over his head, that is hanging over the Browns' head, is what's going to happen. What's going to happen going into this season? Because I at this point, again, from an outside perspective, myself, Austin, Brett, we're not as close to the pulse of Browns beat writers or local reporting. And one thing I've learned as we've gotten into this social media sector where we're interacting with more people around the country with the fan base, there's no value greater than that of local reporting. Right? There's no value greater than that. I will listen to a local beat writer before I'll listen to a guy at ESPN 9 times out of 10.
Every day. 100%.
Yeah. So with that being said, from an outside perspective, it feels like Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended. Aaron, is that still the case? I know you've been back and forth. I've asked you this like 7 times, and every time I ask you, I feel like the answer is a little bit different.
Here's the thing, like you said, whether it's a local beat reporter or a guy on ESPN, it's just one of those things that is, as it continues to be a dark cloud that hangs over the league, it's just something to talk about. And now that training camp is getting started, and I had mentioned this, the reason that it's going to be so talked about until a ruling comes down is because we had nothing else to talk about, right? So now that there's actually shit going on in the league, I don't think it's an unfortunate thing, but it's just also the news cycle of the NFL. You have a former federal prosecutor going over this case. She's not leaking anything. Nobody knows shit. Everyone's just regurgitating the same information. So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I know the NFL has leaked out that they want it to be a year, which makes me believe that it won't be, because when it isn't one, they're going to say, well, this is what we wanted. You guys heard that. And I also think that the Players Association is in an interesting position where you have guys like Robert Kraft, Dan Snyder, owners that should be held to a higher regard that aren't being brought to justice from this perspective, not being that way. And the Players Association's job is to represent the players in the same way that any other union head is there to represent their constituent. So I think he's going to get 8 games if I had to guess. Austin, Brett, I've gone on here just, for a little bit about it. I really have been an open book about this conversation. I know we brought you guys on to ask you guys some questions, but if there is anything you want to know, I'll answer.
No, that was perfect. Between you guys, that was perfect. It's kind of, like you said, you guys are the pools. You guys know a lot more about it than, the Stephen A's that I'm hearing about on ESPN.
Yeah.
Fuck that. I don't care.
They're just talking to talk, honestly.
Exactly.
So they're just making noise.
There's real time.
They have an agenda.
Corey, because you could attest to this too. Me and Austin went through this as Titans fans, and it bled into the Cincinnati fan base. In Tennessee, he was known as Pac-Man Jones. Up there in Cincinnati, he was known as Adam Jones, obviously, because he wanted to change and kind of do better. Now, if he did, I don't really know. Fantastic football player, but the 2 years that he was in Nashville, and it felt like a decade that he was in Nashville, he made so many good plays, but man, he brought on so much baggage to the organization.
Yeah.
And he was out for a year or two because he had a major incident in Las Vegas that got him into some, I don't know how he's still not in more trouble than what he is now, but like when that got to Cincinnati, what was that vibe like? Because like every team has been through it at some point, and just from him going still at a young age from Nashville to Cincinnati, how was that with him up there?
I mean, as a player, again, you kind of have to separate. As a fan, you kind of have to separate it a little bit when it comes to game day. As a player, I'm rooting for him to play as best as he can because it helps my team, and he did that a lot. He was a great player for the Cincinnati Bengals. Special teams, defense, he was a great player. He still got into trouble when he was in Cincinnati. Is the wild part. He still got into trouble. Now, it wasn't anywhere near the level when he was out for an entire season as it was in Tennessee. But when he first come on, it was kind of like, here we go again, man. More of the Bengals. Remember, we had Odell Thurman. Thurman, Georgia linebacker, getting DUIs before he plays one season with the Bengals and he's out. We drafted Hardy Nickerson, who was in fucking jail when the Bengals drafted him. Vontez Burfict, Chris Henry, rest in peace, man.
Yeah.
Chris Henry went through he went through his shit too, right? And Jerome Simpson. This motherfucker did a front flip over another human being into the end zone. They caught him with like fucking 10 pounds of weed in the back of the car. Like, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing? And there were so many of those instances. But, having Pac on when he was there was nothing really that was of that level. And one thing I will say about Pac-Man before I get to a funny Pac-Man Jones story, and I'm glad my dad's jumping in the chat right now. What's up, Pops? Appreciate you coming by, man. But it was a funny Pac-Man Jones story. Oh, no, let me get back to this. Shit, I lost my train of thought. Before the funny Pac-Man Jones story, what was I going to talk about?
There just a second ago.
Yeah, but anyway, I can't remember what it was. But regardless, let me tell you. Oh, Pac-Man Jones and post-career and what he's done. I just think he as a person has come a long way. And I don't know if you follow him or what he's done lately, but I spoke earlier of Chris Henry. He has actually adopted. When Chris Henry passed away, he adopted both of his sons and has taken care of them. And has provided them with the financial grounding that they would have had their father been alive.
Right.
And I think that says more about Pac-Man now as a human than the mistakes he made when he was a young man with way too much money in comparison to what he was used to. I think that says a lot more about him as a person.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was just thinking that in my head. I was like, it's funny how you can kind of get on Instagram and see Pac-Man and Brandon Marshall, these guys like on I Am Athlete, the Pivot podcast.
Great podcast.
They're so likable in there. Like, you're like, wait a minute. Pac-Man wasn't that bad of a guy. He's not that bad of a guy. He actually has some really good stories. He's actually smarter than he looks. Why?
Or acts, rather.
Why couldn't that not have happened, 15 years ago?
I still remember when he went on that rant in the locker room talking about with the trash can, talking about everybody was garbage around him in Cincinnati.
But I would love to hear the story, though, Corey.
Oh, so all right. So funny story. So I lived in Utah for a little bit. That's why I'm a Jazz fan. Yeah. And eventually, opportunities for my wife took us out to Colorado. So we're moving out into the mountains of Colorado, about an hour and a half west of Denver. And my dad and my brother flew out to Salt Lake City and from Cincinnati to help us move to Colorado. And so we load up the budget truck and, my Forester and all that shit. And I got 2 fucking cats sitting in the car with me as we're driving out to Colorado. We drive through the night, get stopped by a snowstorm, wake up in the morning. That's Saturday. We're coming into Saturday now. We finally get to the new place. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, is there with her parents. We unload the car. We're moving in. We're excited. New spot. We're in Colorado. It's beautiful. We're in the middle of the mountains. Absolutely fantastic. That next day, the Bengals were playing the Broncos in Mile High. So my dad and my brother had flown out. We had tickets, hotel down. So we unload the car, and I'm like, all right, babe, see ya. And like me and my dad and my brother, we all pile in my car and head on down to Denver for the night. So the night before, we're having a good time. Time went off and go to the game. It's a great game, and if you've never been to a game at Mile High Stadium, it is a sight to behold. They have just an electric fan base. They're so passionate about their Broncos, as they should be, right? They've given them a lot to cheer about over the last 10, 20 years. Aluminum benches. So third down, they're and it just echoes every time you hear your team throws an incomplete pass, and that is incomplete. The whole stadium is chanting incomplete. Dude, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. You get a lot of shit. But if you ever go there, just call them donkeys. They fucking hate it. All right? Denver donkeys. They can't stand it. So anyway, I step away from my dad and my brother. I go up by myself, go grab a beer, smoke a dart, and I'm going outside in the smoker section. I'm standing out there, and there's this guy just decked out in Bengals gear. I'm like, dude, I got to talk to this guy. This is like me, him, and like 1,400 Broncos fans. So I just walk up to him like, hey, Houday, what's up, man? How you doing? He's like, oh, what's going on, brother? He's talking to me. And we're just, are you from Cincinnati? And I'm like, yeah, but I just moved out here. So, I had to catch the Bengals. He's like, all right, that's cool. I said, what about you? He said, no. I'm just here. I'm out here on business. I said, oh, on business. Okay, what do you do out here? He's like, well, I'm a driver. I drive around, and I make sure Mr. Adam gets where he want to be. And I said, Mr. Adam, what are you talking about? I said, Mr. Adam Jones. He has a lot of business ventures out here in Denver, and I just make sure that he gets to where he needs to be to check on his different business ventures out here. And I was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? And he pulls out this fucking little vial. And he opens it up. He's like, here's some of Mr. Jones' product. Adam Jones owns fucking dispensaries in Colorado.
That's awesome.
Fucking marijuana dispensaries down in Colorado.
That's
and
awesome.
He's just pulling it out. He's like, here, would you like some of the product? You can take a sample. I'm like, okay.
It'd be rude to say no.
Yeah, I'm not going to say no. And so, yeah, it was. So it's not necessarily an Adam Jones story, but Adam Jones related. And I was absolutely just blown away that I had been put in that situation on that day. So many things had to align for that situation to have taken place, but it was absolutely bananas. I partook in the devil's lettuce procured by Mr. Adam Pac-Man Jones.
Yeah, I've been to Denver twice, man. I absolutely adore that place.
It's a hell of a city, man. It's a great time.
A lot of fun.
Absolute great time. So what else is happening?
What part of Salt Lake did you live in?
In Salt Lake City, I lived in downtown Salt Lake.
Salt Lake did you live in?
Yeah, I lived in downtown Salt Lake City for a little bit, and then I lived in Midvale, Utah, and my wife worked in Park City. So we got plenty of time to, up in the mountains, skiing, snowboarding, all that good stuff. And then
I went out there for the first time last year. Absolutely loved it.
Park City?
Loved it. Yeah, and flew into Salt Lake. My first time ever going to Utah. Flew in there from I flew out of Atlanta, Georgia. We had a connection to Vegas, and flew over the mountain into Salt Lake City. I loved it. I got myself University of Utah pullover. That's kind of like I adopted them as my Pac-12 team just because I thought it was dope out there.
Dude, I adopted them too. They have a great fan base. The University of Utah has a fantastic fan base. I didn't get a chance to go to a game at Eccles Stadium, but I would have loved to have seen a game there. I mean, they get up for the Utes. I would have loved.
It's in such a cool spot too.
It's beautiful. It's right downtown. Or right on the outside of downtown, just kind of up in the foothills of the mountains. And that's another cool spot about Salt Lake City is just like it is nestled right up next to the mountains. Whereas like Denver, you have to drive like an hour and a half to you're out into the mountains. Yeah. Salt Lake, 45 minutes, and you're up there, dude. You are up there. And so it's really cool that it's just nestled right there. The mountains are so close. The BYU Utah rivalry is something to behold. It's a lot of fun. Somebody that has no dog in that fight whatsoever, just kind of just being a spectator. And
hey, I'll tune in at 9:30 at night and watch it. Why not?
Absolutely, absolutely, dude, absolutely. And Utah just won the Pac-12. Yeah, they just went to the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, played one of the best Rose Bowl games we'll ever watch.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that was insane.
Aaron got
asked what else is going on, man. Adam Schefter just put a tweet out a little bit ago about Kyler Murray. This is kind of funny. Statement from the Arizona Cardinals on Kyler Murray's updated contract.
Oh God!
After seeing the distraction it created, we removed the addendum from the contract. It was clearly perceived in ways that was never intended.
What the fuck are they doing?
Right? Our confidence in Kyler Murray is as high as it's ever been, and nothing demonstrates our belief in this ability to lead the team more than the commitment reflected in this contract. Dude. So they pretty much got bullied to remove it from the contract based on what people were saying on Twitter.
No, so I have 3-year-old daughters. Kyler Murray acts the same. 100%. This is what happened. Kyler Murray cried and whined to his agent to the point where the agent was reflecting that upon the front office of the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
To the point where it just became so much. Who called that press conference today that Kyler Murray held? It was Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray called that press conference that he had today with, I will not have my work ethic called into question. Guess what, motherfucker? It has been. It has been called into question. Not only by your team, but by every single person that has the Arizona Cardinals on the schedule this season. Every single team. I talked about this last night on the podcast. Every single fucking team that has the Arizona Cardinals on the schedule, they see this and they're like, all right, we know that we can beat this guy because he doesn't work hard. So you just whether or not it's true is not the point. That inflated confidence now exists within that defensive locker room, within that defensive meeting room, that when they're planning and getting ready to go against Kyler, they know if we just work hard, we will beat this guy. If we study hard, if we over prepare, we will beat this guy. Again, it may not be true, but the last thing you want to give somebody is something, right? And the NFL, something is a lot.
100%.
Even if it's just a little bit, it's a lot, right? Bulletin board material, whatever you want to call it. Aaron, we didn't get your perspective on this addendum in the contract last night, so I'm curious, just from a general perspective, what was your take on?
It's just
what was
odd. It's just odd because it's not necessarily something that is unheard of for contracts, really. Right. But the thing is he had no problem signing it, but he basically bullied his way out of it. You know what I mean? So he had no problem saying, I'll take all the guaranteed money of all of that, but I'm going to also have people run interference for me on the sidelines and make sure that this becomes a story, because it wasn't the Cardinals side that leaked that part of the contract. No. Austin, what do you think?
It also said in the contract that he had to eat all of his green beans. He had to be in bed by 9 o'clock. No, I think it's what I said. I think they just got bullied into removing it. And I think you're right. They never wanted to get public. It was for Kyler. Corey made a good point. It's his work ethic, man. It's kind of been his thing the entire time. I kind of hated what he said today about don't question my work ethic. I was 47-0 in high school. Motherfucker, you didn't play anybody.
Yeah, and so it's everybody else that's in the NFL.
High school, dude. It's high school.
I know guys where I'm from that have won 8 state titles in football and basketball. It's because you didn't play anybody. You probably played at, I don't know if it was at Allen High School is probably where he played it. I forget. It was one of the.
He did. I will say the ESPN did this whole thing about like the pinnacle of Texas quarterbacks over the last 20 years, and they named Kyler as like the best.
The number one,
Matt Stafford, obviously Kyler. And there was even like Garrett Gilbert was like up there.
You're an athletic freak. You're gifted. Thank God for that. Don't say, it's your work ethic.
Yeah, but have you ever looked at anybody who's played professional sports on any level and then watched their height? Like Derrick Henry is a great example.
Yeah.
Dude, Joe Burrow balled out in basketball. Like Joe Burrow could have played D1 college basketball, but he didn't.
They're just
better. They're just better. Like if you go to any of your buddies that played college sports or whatever, like say you have a buddy that played college football. If you go play pickup basketball, he's the number one pick. He's the number one pick because he's just better at sports.
How many times have we heard in our lifetime of players over the years that have drank booze the night before, did drugs,
Michael Jordan
stuff. Exactly. And the day after, they're
Josh
fucking
Gordon
60
did his
points.
entire career.
They're more talented. They're just better. So don't say it's your work ethic, dude. Sometimes you just get lucky in life, and you're that gifted.
And it was just a silly contract and contract addendum, and I really think that. What do you think that other quarterbacks thought when they saw this getting put out there? Do you think that they're just like 4 hours? That's it. 4 hours a week, or do you think they're just like, yeah, okay, that makes sense? Like I've seen that in my contract too.
Like it's 40 minutes a day, is it not?
Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah, it's absolutely nothing. I mean, I honestly just think that like you look at a guy like Joe Burrow, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, anybody in that upper echelon of quarterbacks or young up and coming quarterbacks. When you're looking at this, they're just like, what the fuck are you for? That's it. That's all I do that a day. I do that every day.
Exactly.
It was just very bizarre. But from an organization standpoint, if I'm the owner of the Arizona Cardinals and my front office puts this contract together, why are we offering him this contract?
Right.
If we're concerned about these issues, why are we investing the future of our franchise? Because that's what you're doing when you sign a quarterback, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly.
You are investing. Blake, what's up? Liking the stream. I appreciate you, Blake. So when you're investing in a quarterback and putting this contract, you're putting the franchise at risk. Whether good or bad or positive, high ceiling, low floor, whatever you want analogy you want to put to it, that you're tying the success of your franchise to this individual. So if you have these concerns, why the fuck are you offering?
Because Cliff Kingsbury knows that he's an athletic freak. That's got to be it.
And it kind of goes back to the point I made earlier. It's like, listen, there is not a lot of great talent out there at the quarterback position.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. Cliff Kingsbury isn't signing the checks. You know what I mean? Like he is just as the coach is so much more disposable than
100%
than the quarterback. So I get what you mean, like for sure.
Steve Kime's not the smartest guy in the room either. I've never been a
that's
he's made a lot of questionable moves.
But it's you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Sure.
Like it is the most important position in sports. Kyler Murray has shown the fact that he can be elite at the position, but he's also shown the fact that he can be extremely hurt at the position. And if you're going to invest all of that money in a quarterback you can't stay on the field, that doesn't really help you either. So yeah, go ahead, Brett.
Do you think teams have figured him out to a degree? Like after the first 8 weeks last year, Kyler wasn't the MVP Kyler we saw. I mean, I'm not saying that teams have, but do you think that plays a role to a degree that teams have figured out, hey, we got better ways to understand how to stop this guy now?
So we have a rule on this podcast. Sports gambling is legal in Michigan, so I can bet online. There you go. So we have a rule here, and we call if you don't know, I'll give you a little blurb about Rally Tide. We call ourselves the Generous Degenerates. So we do a lot of charity gambling events, Super Bowl squares, splitting half the profits with St. Jude, and doing different things like that. So we do talk a little bit of gambling, and we have a rule that you do not bet on the Redbirds after you cut the turkey bird. You don't do it. You do not bet on them.
I like it.
You don't. When it gets cold, don't bet on Arizona because they fucking suck, man. They like the last 3 years. They were 8-0 to start last year.
Hey, did you see that graphic that came out on Cliff Kingsbury on his second half performances as a head coach?
No,
it's insane. Like you go back to even his Texas Tech days. Like they showed his last 3 years there. Like his last 3 years at Texas Tech, he started out 5-2, 6-1, 5-2. And wow. Texas Tech ended up finishing the seasons 8-4, 7-5, 8-5. And then his first 3 years in Arizona, they were 6-2, 7-1, 8-0, and each year they've barely made the playoffs. So it's a history with Kingsbury as well about not performing in the second half of all of his seasons.
Corey, you brought up a wound that I forgot I had. I'm a degenerate gambler myself, and after they made the signing of J.J. Watt, I put a futures bet out for them to win the division. I think they were plus 1,200 at the time. So I threw 100 down, and they absolutely imploded.
Yeah,
because they had the division won. If y'all remember this, they lost a few games at the end of the year, and the Rams won the division. I'll never fucking forgive them. I forgot.
Dude, once we beat the Rams on Sunday Night Football and just dominated them, the Cardinals were like, okay, it's division's a wrap now.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a quandary are the Arizona Cardinals to say the least. Other news happening in the world of football. Chad, if you got something else for us, go ahead and drop it in the discussion bar right now. Before we wrap up tonight, we got a couple of things to talk about before we close the book here. Again, live with the guys at Second and Victory. Go ahead and give them a follow on Twitter at Second and Victory. We appreciate you guys again for coming by, but big news. They don't have a lot to celebrate in Seattle. They've celebrated the retirement of KJ Wright, obviously. Great career, signed a one-day contract. But they also have celebrated DK Metcalf getting an extension today. I believe it was a 3-year, $27 million. Is that? I'm just going off.
It was
72.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
sorry.
72.
I was going to say that'd be a hell of a deal.
Yeah. Sorry about that. But I just going off the top. But yeah, 3-year, $72 million deal for DK, who coming out of college, I mean, absolute fucking athletic freak, a specimen. Ole Miss, is that where DK came out of? Okay.
Him and AJ were 1-2 together.
Wow, that's just that's bananas.
Who was it that was the quarterback there? Was it
Chad Kelly?
That's
Chad
what it was. Yeah.
Who is still somehow find himself a way onto an NFL roster.
Hey, good for him.
That's why, because he got to throw to elite guys, and they're like, "Hey, this guy's got something."
Yeah, good point.
Look at this tape right here. Look at it. He just puts it right in his hand. Well, yeah, he's got fucking 6 feet of separation. But no, so DK getting an extension there. I mean, I was very surprised at how hard the Seahawks fell off last year. I don't think I was ready for that at all. And obviously with Russ getting hurt in the middle of the season, getting the finger surgically repaired and things like that, that didn't help. But they weren't good before that either. Before Russ Wilson got hurt, they weren't very good before that either. And so what is the path forward? Is Pete Carroll the guy that's going to bring this team out going forward? I got head shaking now, and I know Bobby's watching at home. One of our podcast co-hosts, and he's over the moon right. He fucking can't stand Pete Carroll. No. So I guess what's the future for Seattle? Is it just going to be a long-term crash and burn and then try and rebuild? Do they owe it to Pete Carroll since they brought him a Super Bowl? What do we think here?
Well, if they owe it to Pete Carroll, they gave him Drew Lock. What a shitty exchange that is.
Yeah, right.
Could have had.
I mean,
Could have had so many other guys too.
yeah, you could have got Baker.
If
I mean,
Pete Carroll, dude, I would have retired last year. Honestly, like you've had a great career in Seattle. I'm kind of a Pete Carroll guy. I've always liked him, so I don't want to see him crash and burn to end his career. I mean, he's 70 years old, so I mean, if I were him, it's too late now to retire, but I would have done it last year. Just walk my way out.
Probably would have comment, hell no. Pete Carroll is as useful as a wet paper bag.
tell him, Bobby.
Here's the thing. Pete Carroll's I believe the oldest coach in the NFL.
I think
Yeah.
you're right.
So
Like 135 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Austin, I heard
think
you
so.
say it. Like, why not go after Baker? I get what the Seahawks are doing, right? Because you don't
Tank.
want to be. You don't want. Yeah, you tank it, right? You got C.J. Stroud. You got Bryce Young. You actually have a decent quarterback class coming out. I'd rather have one of those guys.
Yeah.
So I understand what they're doing, but if you're the oldest coach in the NFL, it's kind of hard for me to sign up for that.
Yeah.
Right? I need to win now because I might have a heart attack. Even though I will say, he does not look like the oldest coach in the NFL.
No.
No.
He's
There are
vibrant.
It's not.
How much
He's a good looking old dude.
How much blow does Pete Carroll do just to be like just on the fucking sidelines jawing it off, dude? He's just absolutely all over the place.
You gotta
I
think
need
an
a
8-ball
skincare
game
routine.
Every game is an 8-ball. You gotta think. But even I mean, you got to think about quarterbacks that have been expendable over the last, year or so. Baker, Jimmy G. Now, do you trade Jimmy G to a division rival?
Not gonna happen.
Probably not. But do you think the
No.
Seahawks are going to do anything? Probably not. Yeah,
I
don't
think
know,
they're tanking. Yeah, I think they're tanking. I think 100%, like Aaron said, they're tanking. They like pulling
I'm fine
a
with
Colts.
it. I get it.
And Brett may not want to hear this, but if the Titans didn't get in the league, I was all for tanking this next season to go get a Bryce Young or a C.J. Stroud.
Wow.
I even think back of 2019 when Mariota is, taken out and Tannehill's a starter. You kind of almost want to wish that Mariota finishes the season out, they win 4 games, and you're gonna, you're drafting Justin Herbert or somebody like that.
So I think that you have to look at is when you're looking at some of these teams that are going to be lining up for next year. Teams that they're posing could be at the top are Atlanta. Atlanta, according to USA Today, is a team that could end up with the number 1 overall pick. They just drafted Desmond Ridder, and I've watched a lot of University of Cincinnati Bearcats football, and coming into this draft, I thought he was the one that has the highest floor, meaning that his bad is not as bad as other people's bad could be. I know I just said the word bad there quite a lot, but he was the most pro ready in my opinion. The way that the touch that he can, the way he can throw the different kind of balls, whether it's like a laser, a layered pass, or like a touch pass, he can do all of those things. He can throw the ball better than, but mechanics wise, Malik had better mechanics than any of them. Looking the part, being the guy that could be the face of your franchise, whether it's build and athleticism, Kenny Pickett had all of those things, right? So you look at each of these guys, and they all had their different. None of them had all of it, right? None of them had all of it, and that's why they all fell. That's why there's only one quarterback taken in the first slot. But when you're looking at Atlanta potentially having the first pick, I think Jacksonville makes a step this year. I don't think they could have first overall. But maybe it's Houston. But let's just say it's Atlanta, right? Let's say Atlanta ends up with the first overall pick. That's a trade candidate. So if you're a Titans fan, you've got Tannehill, you've got Malik, you've got draft picks, you've got stuff that you can throw at an organization like the Falcons, who maybe not be interested in a Tannehill, not interested in a Malik, but they'd be interested in a Derrick Henry in a first. I'm just throwing it out. I'm just saying, which is more valuable?
This isn't Madden. You're not trading Derrick Henry for a first round pick.
Which is more valuable, though? Let's put it out on the table. Let's say hypothetically that they were listening to that conversation. Which is more valuable, the best running back in the league, or a quarterback that could potentially win you a Super Bowl? I've answered my question, right? There's no comparison in terms of the value of the position, in my opinion.
Right.
There's a crop of running backs that comes out every year that are taken in the 4th to 6th round that pop off eventually within their career. It's going to be an interesting dynamic as we look ahead of next season, but in the next draft. We got so much football ahead of us.
What are we doing?
I don't even want to talk about the draft, but we kind of got away from ourselves. All right, is there anything that you guys had before we wrap this up tonight? It's been a fantastic podcast. You got Bengals and Browns on the podcast right now. it might be a little bit sore for you. So I can understand that to get into the bees a little bit. But anything else before we close it up tonight?
So are we bullying the Ravens more, or the Steelers more this year? Like, which team do we want to see fail more this season?
We
I
all
wanna see their
collectively,
planes crash into each other in midair.
yeah, just like a Leonard Skinner type deal.
I like that.
I'm just kidding. I don't.
No, but we've collectively all signed a pact because Bobby, one of our co-hosts, he is a Steelers fan. We've all fuck the Ratbirds. We can't stand the Ratbirds, man.
We feel the same way.
Yeah.
I hate them. They took my team away from me, and they can burn in hell.
Yeah. Aaron, before he dies, has vowed to piss on Art Modell's grave, and I'll be holding the camera.
Hell yeah. Love that. Yeah.
Outside of the NFL, what's y'all's team? What's y'all's sport? What's the one that you follow along with? Yours
Aaron?
might be the Jazz, but if it's not, the Jazz, what is it?
Live, breathe, eat, sleep Cleveland. It is all of them straight through. I wish we had a hockey team. I don't follow hockey as much as I wish I did. If we had a NHL team, I would. I have teams that I have like, hey, I like them, but it'll never be the same type of love that I have for. I'm a masochist, basically, is what it comes down to, because it's like these are the teams I root for. But no, honestly, like Cavs, Browns, Guardians, and I can't feel, and that's why when you guys asked me about the Deshaun stuff earlier, it's really hard to take yourself out of that, to be like, oh, I have to put this away now, even though I have very, very mixed feelings about it. It's this just like relationship that I've had my entire life, and really the whole city is that way. There are some people that after the Deshaun stuff were like, I just, I can't do this anymore. Nobody that I know or talk to. It's like things that you see on the internet, you know what I mean, of people that are saying that. And a lot of those people are like, they were Oklahoma fans that by trade were now Browns fans, you know what I mean? It was weird going from being the lovable loser to the, the hatred or stain of the NFL. But across the other sports, I mean, it's if they play in Cleveland, we support them, we love them, and we give them everything we got.
I think we wish we had that a little bit more in Nashville. We just had we have the Preds, and we have the soccer team now, Nashville FC. That
it's actually kind of balling. Yeah.
That Brett's, him and Chris trying to get me onto that more, but I'm just I'm a soccer guy. Never have been, never will be. So
I get you.
The game
it's a World Cup. World Cup. I get it.
Fuck yeah, dude. I'm with it, exactly. I'll get
the vuvuzela. Hell yeah, dude.
I'm gonna be in Costa Rica this year for my honeymoon during the World Cup. I'm like
big World Cup guys.
Nice.
I hope are we in the same? We're not in the same group as Costa Rica.
No, but I'm gonna go to a little town and drink some cervezas.
England though, which is
that'll be insane. Little Revolutionary War. Gonna dress up like a fucking Boston Tea Party, son of a bitch. Hell yeah, we're gonna boycott all the teas.
I do want to tell you though, I'm a diehard Vanderbilt fan.
Okay, Darius Garland.
He's one of the. He's
my
one
guy.
Of the few. He's
That's my guy.
So yeah, I watch almost all the Cavs games just for him. But Corey,
that's
what
awesome,
teams, man.
So when it comes to the professional sports in Cincinnati, those are my teams: the Bengals and the Reds. So I'm just waiting for that tweet coming out that Luis Castillo has been traded to the Yankees or the Twins. Waiting for that one. It's been it's just so interesting looking at the Reds, and we've talked about it on here a couple of times, just how close they were just a couple of years ago. When you look at that roster and what they had with Wade Miley and Luis Castillo and Sonny Gray and da-da-da. Cueto is a little bit more removed from that, but then you look at the bats that they had with Nick Castellanos, right? And then you have a guy like Jesse Winker, and then Mike Moustakas, and then Jonathan India, and then Joey Votto. And I just can keep going on about the only thing they really were missing was a bullpen, and they had the opportunity to go and secure that at the trade deadline. They just didn't do it, and that's why you watched them go get beaten 4 straight to the eventual World Series champion Atlanta Braves. That's just what happens with the Reds and this ownership group. So I'm in a state of habitual pain in terms of rooting for the Reds, and it's really been an interesting dynamic being a native of Cincinnati, which is a baseball town. Don't let anybody confuse you otherwise. 100%. It is a die-hard baseball town. Opening day in Cincinnati, I know a lot of people talk about opening day in their town, and I'm sure it's a big festivity. It's not the same. It just isn't. If you look at the banks right next to the bars that are right next to Great American Ballpark, it's fucking nuts. It is. Sick. They have a parade that starts at the top of the hill and runs down. They got the mayor is there, and it's a huge deal. It's a great ballpark. It is. It's beautiful. But Paul Brown Stadium, not so much, but Great American is pretty great. But it's a baseball town, and the city is craving a successful baseball team, and this ownership just refuses to give it to him. And baseball is a sport where it is not about where you draft. It is about what you do to acquire players, to spend money.
Yep.
And the ownership is just not willing or able or both to do that. So that's my baseball team. In terms of football, obviously, diehard Cincinnati Bengals fan. I was there in Kansas City when we took down the Chiefs. At halftime, I'm walking around saying, as long as we got 9, we fine. As long I'm fucking wasted at this point, but just hey, at halftime, the cheerleaders come out. Look, there's Jackson Mahomes. You see him out there dancing? Look at him dancing. But I got nothing but respect for Chiefs fans. Honestly, they were a great host, beautiful stadium, great atmosphere. It was a hell of a time. I'm still paying for it financially, but I'll never forget that moment. To be honest, it was beautiful. But in terms of college football, I will defer to Bowling Green. But if I pick a team that actually has a chance to win a national championship, I'm sorry to tell you, Austin, I am a diehard Gators fan. Big time.
Oh, bro.
Big Gators fan. And if you're a Vols fan, I want to hear, Brett, you beat us last year, so good for you. Good for you. Finally, fucking 20 years, you finally beat us. But no, my grandparents went to the University of Florida. That's where they met. So my whole family was raised Gators fans, and growing up in Ohio in the 2006 national championship was a good day to be a Gator fan in the state of Ohio. It was a good time, and Aaron and I got to connect with that a little bit when we first got to college.
I'm like a fair weather Buckeyes fan. Like I root for them because it's chic here. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't ruin my day though when they lose.
And so NBA, NBA. I was not really a big NBA fan until I got to college. I got around Aaron and saw his love for the Cavs, and I was like, all right, what's the closest team to Cincinnati? I'll take the Pacers. Cool, Pacers fan. And it was really fun to root for the Pacers at that time. That was in the Paul George, Roy Hibbert era when they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Danny fucking Granger,
DG,
DG, dude, Danny Granger, man, what a flash in the pan! Awesome basketball, right? So much fun, man. He was so fucking good. And George Hill, don't forget George Hill. Yeah. So anyway, I was rooting for them in the Beat the Heat time, and I was really enjoying that. But then I moved out to Utah for my job, and we were like, let's go. The Pistons were in town. My wife's from Detroit, which is why we're here now. And Pistons were in town. I was like, let's go to a Pistons game. I was like, well, honey, I've never lived in Michigan. I live in Utah now. I'm wearing a Jazz jersey. I know what to tell you. So I got a Gordon Hayward T-shirt, and I was rocking it out there. And I went out, and man, if you're ever again, I know Brett, you said you were out in Utah. If you're ever there again during basketball season, make a point to go to a game at Vivint, because
I got to.
That state has nothing else. They have nothing else. The Jazz, it is Joseph Smith, BYU, the Jazz, and then it's just like everything else, right? There's a huge drop off. The Jazz are the biggest thing out there, and rightfully so, right? They've been one of the most successful franchise in terms of making the playoffs or having a winning season for a longest time. They just can't get the job done, right? They can't bring a finals home. So I went to a game there, and it was just fucking electric, man. It was like a Tuesday night, and this place was packed. Jam-packed. My ears were ringing. The place was just jumping. I was like, I'm fucking sold. So I dove right into the Jazz, and that was right when they drafted Donovan. It was Donovan Mitchell's rookie year, and obviously the last season of Gordon Hayward, and they had Rudy. So it was a lot of fun watching the Jazz and the hopefulness that existed in that team at that time. Obviously, we're talking about a different franchise nowadays, but so yeah, those are where I hang my hat. What about you boys? You're all Nashville?
No, dude, I got such a wide variety. So you talk about Luis possibly being traded to the Yankees. My dog, Andrew Benintendi, who I got from Austin's team, the Red Sox, gave him to the Royals. I'm a diehard Royals fan.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
really?
Johnny Cueto, baby.
Which is great. Good
Johnny
for you,
Cueto,
man. I just don't hear a lot of Royals love.
Yeah,
Dude, it's
no.
hard, man. No, it's hard. So my dad is originally from Kansas City. And so a bunch of my family still lives over there in Kansas City. So either when I'm growing up, going back to visit, went to a couple of games, saw Roger Clemens pitch when the Yankees were in town.
You're a
one
party
time,
in
he was super
Westport?
sick. Yes, yeah, dude.
Kelly's in
great
Westport.
area.
That's a
Great
good
area.
time.
They
Yeah,
got,
man.
yeah, great area. And speaking of, I mean, that's just a good sports town, but that's another
Yeah.
baseball and football. Obviously, I know that's all they got, but they're all four of those.
Mm-hmm.
So big time Royals guy. Growing up down here, because you would expect me to be a Braves guy, but I've always latched onto the Royals because I grew up in Alabama, which you would expect me to be a Bama fan. Can't stand them. Tennessee
Good
fan
for you.
through and through for all sports.
Good
all
for
sports.
you.
And where I went to school too, I played college golf. So outside of football, golf, PJ Tour, that's all me. But where I went to
Love
school was
that.
45
Yeah.
minutes from Tuscaloosa. So like, I mean, talking about every now and then I'd wear an orange tee around campus and just get ripped because we're right down the road from Tuscaloosa.
Makes
but
sense.
I mean, no shame in it. So, so Tennessee for college, and then and Montevallo where I went to school, obviously. Royals for baseball. I grew up a Kobe guy, and so even after he retired and all that, I latched on. I stayed on even through the horrible years when Jordan Clarkson was the number one player, Kyle Kuzma was the number one player. Stayed on that the whole time.
Be careful. He's about to be my number one player.
Big Jordan Farmer guy.
Literally.
He's getting buckets now, though. Clarkson's fun to watch now.
He is.
Yeah, he is. So I've always stayed on to the Lakers. I've been to LA, but I've never been to a game at Staples Center. So that's definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah,
I have
that's
been
awesome.
to a game at Great American Ballpark. That was dope. I went to a game there summer of 2018. It was just me. Went up to Cincinnati for the weekend, enjoyed it, and actually saw a picture. I don't know who his name was for the Reds. Hit a grand slam, which is the first one they had hit in like 40 years.
I think that was
It was against the Cubs.
shit. Who's
it
Michael Lorenzen?
I think that might have been.
Might have been Michael.
Against
How
the
long ago
Cubs,
was it?
Grand slam to left. It was summer of 2018.
20. So it was probably Michael Lorenzen.
Yeah.
Bronson Arroyo. Yeah, he's long retirement. He did hit a couple dingers when he first came over from the Red Sox, though. But it's probably Michael Lorenzen. He's a utility guy. He also plays out in the outfield sometimes, or did when he was with the Reds.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a good story. You know, it's interesting. I found obviously Nashville is, over the last 10 years has just absolutely exploded in terms of party central and everything like that.
Yeah.
But you've been to Kansas City, and you've been to Cincinnati, and I've been to Cleveland. Those three cities are so similar. They are so similar in terms of like the people, right? They have great beer. They love their sports teams. There's fantastic restaurants, and they just have that
nice
Midwest,
people, too.
we're just here to have a good time, man. You know what I'm saying? That is.
You want to have a good time, dude? Come down to Nashville. Me and Austin and Chris too. We're all big Nashville Predators people. Hey, going to a Predators game is a different. You talk about going to a Jazz game; it's a different experience. You go to a Preds game. Completely different experience.
So that's the one that I left off. Being here in Detroit and being from Cincinnati, we never had a hockey team. There were no Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm a Red Wings fan.
Okay.
I'm a Red Wings fan. So it'll be a little interesting. Well, now we're not in the West. We're not in the West anymore. So we could. So we get a Stanley Cup matchup. We'll have to do a Rally Towel second in victory.
I still need to pop my NHL cherry. I still have never gone to an NHL.
Beautiful.
I would as a Predator sounds like the way to do it.
Yeah,
trial by fire.
Throwing fucking catfish on the ice and shit. It's fucking animals.
Austin, what's your sports lineage?
Yeah, so obviously, I bleed two-tone blue, Titans through and through.
Of course,
I said
love
Vandy, unfucking fortunately. Just grew up around here. I just did not want to be a Tennessee fan. I fucking hated the color orange.
Good for you, man.
I wouldn't for it. My mom got me a Eric Berry jersey when I was in college for my birthday, and I was like, "Mama, I don't like this. I don't want to wear this. Cool. This is not cool."
As someone who went to Bowling Green and is a Browns fan, the orange comment, I'll let it slide.
Oh, sorry.
I'm kidding.
It's a different orange. It's a different orange.
I own nothing orange in my closet.
It's like traffic cone versus orange.
It is a weird. I'll give you that.
It's just different.
Never a fan of it. But I just went to a lot of games with my very close friend, and they had season tickets to everything Vandy, basketball, football, and they had 4 tickets.
Awesome.
His mom never went. His little brother never went. They're like, "Hey, Austin, do you want to go?" Yeah, might as well. So I kind of just said I grew into that. Regret that decision every day of my life. That's that. Baseball, Brett kind of mentioned it. Red Sox. Crazy story on this. I, as a Vandy fan, around that time that I was growing up playing baseball, David Price was in college, and he was the biggest thing at Vandy.
I remember that.
Number one pick. So I kind of just followed David Price. My favorite MLB player of all time is him. So he went to Tampa, drafted there, spent a few years there, traded to Detroit, followed him to Detroit. I just didn't have a team. Followed him to Detroit, went to Toronto, and then am I missing one? I think after
Sox. He was
Toronto,
on the Red
it was
Sox,
the Red
wasn't
Sox. He
he?
signed.
Yeah.
I'm done switching teams. Let's stick to this. So the day he signed, there's the day I committed to the Red Sox.
Okay.
It's been good ever since.
I feel it.
Yeah,
They
No,
won a
I
ring
get that.
in 2018, so I get that.
Yeah.
And the Celtics, man, that's my number 2 team that I will ride and die with my Boston Celtics to the day I die.
So did you get the Celtics from the Red Sox? You're like, I'm in the
No,
city.
that's a whole different story too. Went to a game in Memphis when I was in middle school, and they were playing the Grizzlies, and it was the first year of the Boston
Big Three.
Yeah, man. So was there. We sat about 2 rows behind the bench, and so I kind of just fell in love with them ever since. I didn't have an NBA team then when I was growing up. Grizzlies weren't very good back then, so you didn't really keep them. It's kind of a weird thing for those that don't know about Nashville and Memphis. Kind of have just a disconnection. We don't really fuck with Memphis. Memphis don't really fuck with us.
Time.
Very different cities.
Yeah.
I've been to both.
Oh my gosh.
So
The Grizzlies are people are kind of Chris would hate me for this, but they'll grow. We're kind of growing to like Memphis more. John Moran is so easy to cheer
he's
for.
Oh my God.
So it's easy to root for him now, but back then I just wasn't a big fan. But so yeah, I just kind of ever since went to that Celtics game and kind of ever since been addicted to him. So
yeah,
I
get that. I am one of the biggest basketball fans that I know personally because I was so fortunate that when I was 1 year old, my family moved. I was born in Ohio but moved to Illinois, like right outside of Chicago when I was 1 year old. So for my entire life, I basically on local television got to watch Michael Jordan and LeBron James. So I was like, well, I love basketball then. I lived in Kerry, Illinois, which is like outside of Crystal Lake. It's like a 40-minute train ride to downtown.
I got family that lives in Woodstock.
Okay.
And then I had a teammate in college. He is from St. Charles, Illinois. And we played together down in Montevallo, played college golf together. So I didn't know how that was close to you or whatever, but I got a couple connections.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I moved back we moved back to Ohio when I was like 9. But like, when you like,
you got the prime though.
The second three-peat for the Bulls is like when I was like coming online and like, oh, I really like sports. You know what I mean? I had like a Michael Jordan jersey that looked like a dress on me. I vividly remember all of it. You know what I mean?
So Aaron, before I hop off here, I have to ask you this because somebody that lived through the Jordan era and then you lived through the entire LeBron era, like I have. Who's your GOAT?
It's a great question, right? It's still Jordan.
Yeah.
I think there's so much nuance to the conversation though that I think gets lost. So I say this all the time. LeBron James is so much more Magic Johnson than he is Michael Jordan, right? And you can have a respect for both. Yep. So Michael Jordan was the cutthroat, I will murder your children so I can win kind of person. And LeBron James has always been this cerebral type of player where it's, I have no problem dishing it out. I have no problem grabbing the rebounds, and I will drop 35 on your face every single night. I got to see LeBron all the time. I've seen him live. I actually got to go to the first game where he came back to Cleveland. That was one of the most electric. Oh wow! It was one of the most electric things I've ever seen in my life. It was one of the coolest experiences of my life. But listen, Jordan never lost in the finals, right? Yeah. There's something said about that. I will say that the competition in the NBA now is much better than it was when Jordan played. But I also think, Jordan's the GOAT, but LeBron's 2. LeBron's 2 in my book, and it's not even really. It's 1 and 2, and then after that, you can have your debate. Yeah, and we'll wrap right here. I want to say I appreciate you guys for coming on. It's been a fantastic. We went long, so I appreciate you guys hanging out. Yeah, we did go a little long, so we appreciate you. It was just going well. I'll say one thing that I think I saw on like an Instagram reel in regards to the Jordan LeBron debate before we wrap tonight. Guy goes to a girl's house 6 times and hooks up 6 times. Guy goes to a girl's house 10 times and hooks up 3 times. Who's the GOAT? We'll leave it there. End of discussion. Who's the girl? Oh God damn it. All right, we're gonna play a little music outro as we get out of here. Again, the boys from Second and Victory, go give them a follow. We appreciate you guys, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. It was a fantastic show. Can't wait to see what happens. Titans and Bengals.
They played this year. Gonna be a lot of fun. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for Rally Tough Sports. I'm Corey. For Aaron, we'll see you later.